Good morning, good evening, whatever time it is out there. Hopefully everybody is having an awesome day. In today's video, I'm going to discuss the BSIS Advisory Committee summary for July 2021. Those of you who are in California, BSIS, as a reminder, stands for the Bureau of Security and Investigative Services. They are the licensing body, their regulatory arm for your guard card, security guard registration, private investigator license. They also do repossessions, locksmiths, alarm companies. They are the regulatory arm. I encourage those of you who are in leadership positions, maybe you're a supervisor, you own a private security or private investigations company, that you share this video with your staff so that you know of all the upcoming legislative updates. A lot of the laws that I'm going to discuss today, they are most likely going to pass with the current political environment. So let's talk about what the meeting was about. Before we talk about the meeting, something I forgot to mention, this is a disclaimer. We're going to be discussing some laws that was discussed, well, pending legislation that was discussed, but my disclaimer is that there may be errors and omissions that are made in this video. I try my best to record the most accurate video I can, but I can't remember every single detail sometimes, and sometimes my interpretation of something may be perceived a little bit differently than somebody else. I also want to disclose that I am not an attorney and I am not a business consultant. I'm not your consultant. Nothing is professional advice. Nothing that I discuss in this video is going to be legal advice. By not consulting with an attorney, you can make some difficult and pricey decisions as a result of you taking any actions or omissions as a result of this video. So that's my disclaimer. I try to make a video that's as accurate as possible, but sometimes I do make mistakes. So I will apologize in advance on that. I also want to mention to you that I don't represent any law enforcement agency or any employer. Okay, so the meeting was made on July 22nd, 2021. And on the agenda, they discussed the update on the licensing unit. And this is what we found. That for private security guards, there's a new plastic photo ID card that is being issued to dozens and dozens of private security professionals across California. All it really is the guard card number of the guard and where they can confirm this person's registration status. Now, what BSIS was discussing during the committee meeting was that they want to make a QR code. You scan it with a phone or some QR app, and it brings you automatically, or brings the consumer, maybe even a supervisor, automatically to the BSIS page to see what the current status is for the private security professional. Now keep in mind, even if you do get this plastic ID card, there's also a paper registration that you're issued when you get your guard card. You have to carry both with you. So if you want to carry the photo ID card at this moment, you have to carry the photo ID card and the paper registration. Some of you might ask, well, what's the purpose of carrying the photo ID card? Well, the photo ID card is a lot more durable. Now, why you'd carry both, that's a personal preference for you. Me personally, I would just carry the paper registration. Why would I want to carry two things? Now, for private investigators, it's mandatory, and I'll discuss that in this video. It's mandatory that you have the plastic photo ID card. You have to have that card. They're phasing out the paper registration for private investigators. Another thing they discussed was that in the BSIS system, now remember, the BSIS system is a system where you apply online for your guard card or your private investigator license, your private patrol operator license. You're applying, most people are applying online. If you are not applying online, you're missing a lot because, well, especially the firearm permit. If you're applying for a firearm permit, instead of the state BSIS sending you maybe some delinquency notices or some deficiency notices through snail mail, also known as the United States Postal Service, you get these notifications on the BSIS system, and the BSIS system is connected to the email of your choosing. So right now, they're only testing out the firearm permits. Okay, if there's a deficiency, then you will get an alert on the BSIS system. Now, I listened to the majority of this meeting that was on July 22nd. The only part that I didn't listen to was the small intricacies of the BSIS system. They went and talked about that for some time, maybe about 15, 20 minutes. And that was a part of the video I skipped. Now, mind you, after every agenda item that was discussed, at the end is a section for public comments. Now, some of the sections, agenda items, I fast forwarded. I didn't believe there's any relevancy to our industry. Fast forwarded, but I always made sure that I didn't miss any public comment. I don't want to miss if any of you subscribers mention anything in the BSIS. I want to hear everything that you guys tell them. So this new deficiency message system, they want to use it for their licensing population that has the most deficiencies, and the licensing population that has the most deficiencies is security guards. They make the most mistake, and this system next, the deficiency alerts, they're going to try to phase in for private security guards applying for their guard card. That's going to be next, but not right now. If there's a deficiency, it's going to slow down your process of getting your guard card. They might notify you through email. They might even call you. Okay. And I think the BSIS system might say something to the effect that it's in progress, even though that you might be the 4th or 5th month trying to get your guard card, even though it should take a lot sooner than that. The system will say, in progress, and you won't even know what the specific deficiency is. So it's my understanding that BSIS, they might send you emails, they might call you, maybe send you something through mail. But my understanding that they don't alert you through the BSIS system. I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please let me know in the comment section below. We talked about the private investigator photo ID card. This is state law, you guys. If you're a private investigator in California, you have to carry the photo ID card. You also have to, if you're working criminal defense cases, if you want to interview your client at perhaps maybe county jail or state prison, they're going to be asking for the photo ID card. They don't care about the registration. Now, you might get away with it a couple of times or maybe a few more years because this is newer legislation. But eventually, you're going to have to show that photo ID card. And like I said, this is state law. This is Business Professions Code 7529. So I want to make it clear, private security guards do not have to carry a photo ID card. It's optional. Why you carry a photo ID card, I have no idea why you would, other than it's durable and maybe to show others a hint of more legitimacy. And that's just my speculation. I just think it's a hassle because you got to carry a paper registration and the photo ID card, or you could just carry the paper registration. Okay, but for private investigators, you need the photo ID card. If you want to carry a paper registration, go ahead. But BSIS, they're phasing out. And remember, and this is kind of the issue that I was hearing with the agenda is that one person commented that it's been 45 days and they haven't got their photo ID card, and he cannot do the interviews at the county jail because they won't let him in because he doesn't have the photo ID card. So he's been waiting 45 days and he still hasn't got his card. Okay, so if you are private security guard, and they kept mentioning private security guard after when you consider that there's so many other licenses that BSIS issues, they kept mentioning security guard. The number one reason for the delay is there's a deficiency in the application. And I also believe for private investigators and for private patrol operator applicants, the primary reason for a delay is going to be a deficiency in application. There's something that you did not do. The chief recommends that you use the BSIS system. Okay, and that should eliminate some of the errors. And the BSIS chief says you got to fill out the application completely. If they ask for your middle name, you got to put your middle name. It needs to be complete. You guys look from left to right. Those of you who want to be private patrol operators, and in California, private patrol operator is a fancy name for a private security company owner. If you want to be one, I have a video that shows you how to fill out an application completely. Okay, if I remember, I'll put a link in the description box below on how to fill out the application completely. I had seen a lot of positive feedback when I made that video. The video is long, it's 3 hours, but you want to spend 3 hours on a video where we go over the application together, or do you want to extend your application for 3 months or longer than that? It's up to you. BSIS chief says that a lot of applicants do not want to disclose their social security number. You guys, if you want to have a license under BSIS, you have to disclose your social security number. They're not going to give you a license without that social security number. You have to give it. The chief mentioned that she called some people and asked, hey, we need your social security number. We can't process your guard card or your permits. And they didn't want to do it. And when she finally mentioned, hey, I'm not going to give you a permit or a license for the license you seek, then they reluctantly gave up their social security number. Obviously, you want to make sure that it is indeed BSIS that is contacting you for the social security number. Okay, so we also learned that TIF, that's a training instructor firearm. That's what it stands for. It's basically your firearm instructors. They're not filling out their portion of the application appropriately. If you are a firearm instructor, you guys got to read all the boxes and make sure that you're filling out the appropriate forms. At the bottom of the qualification form or the requalification form, there's the current year and then the current month. I think it has the month, but it has a current year. Don't use old stuff on there. Make sure it's current, and you guys look at all the boxes. If they ask something, make sure you put that. Now, this is the problem, is when the firearm instructors fill out their portion, there's a portion that the applicant has to fill out, and you guys who are applicants trying to renew your firearm permit, it is your duty. It is your duty to fill out your portion of it. If you're a firearm instructor, you guys forward this portion of the video to your clients and remind them it is their duty to fill out their portion. Okay, so BSIS mentioned that they are meeting their licensing and processing goals 90%. That's really good. They also mentioned that they are, I think, almost to capacity. This is in contrast to what many of you have mentioned over the past years. Some people mentioned it's been 9 months, 10 months to process a private investigator or private patrol operator application. It doesn't make sense if they're meeting their goals 90%. A lot of you guys are complaining. On the public comments, I don't hear any of you. And when I mean any of you guys that are subscribers on my channel, I don't hear any of you complaining that your application is taking too long, that it's been more than 3 months, 4 months. There's statutory period for private investigator and private patrol operator applications. I believe it's 120 days, more or less. It's been about a year since I looked at the statutory limits. Now, obviously, because of COVID-19, they can take longer, but that is the goal for BSIS. It was about 120 days for an application that doesn't have any deficiencies at all. Okay, if you're a veteran, there's a veteran on one of my that commented on I think it was a review on Amazon for the Amazon book I have, The Private Patrol Operator, and that comment I think mentioned this person was a veteran, and then in 30 days they got their private patrol operator license. Okay, I'm sorry, I think it took 90 days. and this person thought that that was fast. Well, I seen those applications get done in 30 days. So 90 days, 90 to 100, you guys, that's on a typical non-COVID year, that's how long it takes. But look, there's 90%. They met their goals accordingly to the meeting, 90%. I get a lot of complaints that they're taking too long. You guys, there's nothing that I can do for you if they're taking too long. You're supposed to show up, and you don't even have to show up to these committee meetings. They are done online. As long as there's a COVID-19 epidemic, they're going to keep doing these meetings online. And this is your time to make a comment during the public comment section of each agenda item to bring up any issues that you see. If you don't bring up anything, then BSIS thinks that they're doing a fantastic job. And based on my perception of the meeting, listening to the minutes, listening to the chief, I don't see anything wrong with what they're doing. Okay, you guys gotta bring up the issues. The chief even asked the audience if there's any issues, and there's some people that brought up issues, and she said, I will be in direct contact with you. Here's my email. Just let me know what the problem is, and I'll look into it. And she says that I think she said that in the last meeting, and I believe that the BSIS chief did correct whatever issue it is, because nobody brought it up to her attention that they were ignored. Okay, so here's the update on the enforcement unit. And the enforcement unit is the regulatory branch of BSIS. These are the people that they're analysts. Okay, they have analysts, and they just hired an actual, I think, a sworn investigator that does not carry a firearm. I don't think that matters, but I just want to mention that to you. So the enforcement unit currently has 500 appeals for the firearm permit disqualification. An FP, that's a firearm permit, there's a 15% failure rate, you guys, and each appeal costs between $3,000 to $7,000. Okay, and these appeals go directly to the Attorney General's office for the state of California. It's costly, and what the BSIS chief mentioned is that in fiscal year 2023, BSIS is going to operate in the red due to all these appeals. I said this in other videos, you guys. I believe that your right to carry a firearm is written in the Second Amendment, and the Second Amendment does not mention that you have to take a psychological exam. Just because, oh, by the way, if you guys didn't know, you have to take a psychological exam now, and that's been the law the last, I think, 1 to 2 years, if you want a firearm permit. Okay, this has been the law, and I strongly believe that this is unnecessary, but there's some people in the California Assembly that thought that this is going to help, and this is the problem: is there is no research written into the bill. So if coming from an educational standpoint or research standpoint, that's my background. When you write one of these laws, you should have some research. So you should research first off, how many unlawful discharges, how many manslaughter charges, how many murder charges are typically brought, or even accusations brought against private security officers, the armed ones. How many there are in the last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, some type of research. And then what you're supposed to write into law is research any trends, acts, any trends, instances. Well, let me summarize this the best. You want to research what happens after the law goes into effect. Did the law have any type of positive effect? With private security guards using a firearm recklessly, you want to have some type of comparison before the law or after the law, because this law is costing BSIS a lot of money. I mean, there's 500 appeals, and they each cost between $3,000 to $7,000. You do the math, and you know, we're over $100,000 already, you guys, and this is why BSI is going to operate in the red. Typically, when you come up with these laws, you have to provide what the fiscal impact is going to be on the stakeholders, and I don't know if this was even discussed. So they will be operating in the red, okay, because of all these appeals. There was a committee member, I can't remember his name. This is why you guys need to be watching these meetings, watching these minutes. He discussed raising the rates, the licensing prices, so that we can address the financial shortfall with BSIS. Okay, this is one of your committee members saying this. I don't believe that this is the best way to go. This is the thing. The more money they get, that does not equate to better customer service. I know right now, many of you might call BSIS, ask for a licensing question or a question about your application or just in general, and perhaps you might wait 45 minutes or maybe an hour. Maybe somebody doesn't answer. Maybe somebody hangs up on you because they don't know the answer. I've heard that a couple of times, that the state will hang up on you. Okay. And then what I'm also hearing is that BSIS is not answering their phones many times. It's a Department of Consumer Affairs. Remember, BSIS is the child of Department of Consumer Affairs. Department of Consumer Affairs is the parent. They have hundreds and hundreds of subdivisions such as BSIS. So basically a generalist will answer the phone and provide you their best advice, which might not be the best advice all the time. You always want to talk to somebody that knows what they're doing, somebody that has worked at BSIS for a while, because sometimes a simple question that can fix an issue out there can, and if the answer isn't if the question never answered, this might lead to an enforcement issue. Somebody might be breaking the law because they can't get the right answer. Okay, so I don't think that the money will go to customer service for you guys. Okay, maybe for the consumer, but not for you, somebody who needs maybe some technical expertise from BSIS. Now, most of you, almost every one of you, didn't hear what the committee member said, and he usually has some great input. I don't know why he mentioned this. You can't hold him accountable. You cannot counter argue what he said, because most of you, actually none of you even made a comment about raising rates. Okay, and you guys could have. So the chief mentioned that there's Senate Bill 607 in the works, and two Democrats from California, Min and Roth, they came up with Senate Bill 607. And so what this is there's a military spouse waiver for, I think it's fees, but she said the greatest benefit is for the firearm permit, the psychological assessment. If this Senate bill passes, the assessment will be before you take the firearm permit course. What the chief mentioned, and she is totally accurate, is that there's a lot of emotional investment when you go on with these firearm permit courses. You might have to take time off of work. You're gonna have to pay money to buy a firearm, buy the ammunition, and then take the class. The class is not cheap, you guys, for a firearm permit. I even did a video on how much it costs to be an armed private security guard in the state of California. The guard, the consumer, they pay so much money, and then for them to fail at the psychological assessment, it's morally defeating for many people. Somebody on my channel, actually they called me, we had a great discussion. He said somebody from one of his guards, a good guard, he's morally defined, a good person, for lack of a better terms. Good person, makes great decisions, did not pass the psychological assessment, not because he was morally bankrupt, but because he did not speak English well, and that's why he failed the psychological assessment. Okay. At that time, that guard spent a lot of money and was invested in becoming an armed guard, and guards just like him, they are more inclined to appeal. Okay, when you invest a lot of money into something, you're going to most likely appeal if you're not granted what you applied for. So the chief believed that SB 607 will help with the 15% failure, I'm sorry, with the 500 appeals. Okay. I don't believe that, I think BSIS needs to have more of a discussion with our lawmakers. Open up some dialogue, but I don't believe SB 607 personally is going to reduce the number of appeals. But I could be wrong. Let's visit this. Let's visit this once it passes, and we'll give it some time. Those of you who wonder what the assessment does, it judges your appropriate judgment, restraint, and self-control. I strongly am opposed to believing that a psychological assessment can do all three things, but there are people that are beyond my pay grade and in a different spectrum of the political arena who believe a psychological assessment will identify somebody that is not psychologically well. Okay, that's what they believe. But these are the three things that this assessment tests. Okay, most of the time for the advisory committee meeting was taken discussing AB 229. This is a use of force law. This is legislation that's being introduced by an assemblyman in the state of California, Mr. Holden. I think his first name is Christopher or Chris. He's a Democrat. He revised the use of force legislation 2 days before the meeting. And why is this so relevant? Well, it's relevant because there was a suggestion from a committee member to change the duration of the 10-hour powers to arrest course. This is also known as the guard card course. It was supposed to be 10 hours and they changed it to 8 hours. And what ended up happening is the BSIS chief and her team, they contacted Mr. Holden's office and they said, hey, look, this is not going to work. We hire somebody and we're willing to pay for their guard card. Well, we might have to pay them 2 hours of overtime. This is not going to work, especially the companies that hire the guards directly, or they're willing to pay for the course, and they're hired already. It's just too long. So the Holden's office did agree to making it 8 hours. That's why it's so important. And one person just mentioned it, you guys, on the last webinar that we had. Hey, this is going to disrupt the business community, the security business community. Please chop it down to 8 hours. And Mr. Holden's office was open to listening. He was open to different ideas, and thank goodness that he chopped it down to 8 hours instead of a 10-hour class. And by the way, they took out the terrorism portion of the 8-hour powers to arrest course. The terrorism portion will be an elective. Okay. Let's see. Oh, also California Post, the California Commission of Peace Officer Standards and Training, they're going to review the outline for the powers to arrest course, and they're going to assist in defining what objectively reasonable force and best practices is. The last meeting, the committee members, and I think somebody from the public were wondering what this means, reasonable force and best practices. And again, the BSIS chief and her team contacted Holden's office, and it looks like the California Post is going to help come up with a training outline. Okay, so this could be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. Okay, because best practices, what's good for, because this is California Post reviewing this. California Post reviews the peace officer standards of training. This can be deputy sheriffs, this can be park rangers, this can be corrections, well, not corrections, This can be other peace officers, police officers. What is good for law enforcement may not be good for private security. Okay, there's a totally different level of training. I mean, basic police academy is somewhere in the area of 900 to 1,000 hours. A California private security guard only needs 40 hours within the first 6 months, and then the annual refresher courses. Okay, that's nowhere near what the training that a peace officer receives. So hopefully the security guard will not be held to the same standards. And this scares me that California Post is creating this. If you guys have any input, please show up on these webinars. You don't have to show up in person. Actually, you can't show up in person. You show up online and put in your input, you guys. Nobody from the public made any comment on AB 229. And like I said, it's going to remove the weapons mass introduction course. But the good thing is there's going to be an active shooter portion in there. And it's going to help the private security professional with tips on addressing an active shooter situation. So that's great. I'm bummed out, though, that the weapons of mass destruction course is totally removed. I think we need that course. But at least we have the active shooter portion in there. Another thing is this was not discussed during the meeting, but I researched the revision of AB 229, and I found that the use of force outline has to be taught in person. All of these courses, except the firearm, well, actually, I think all of the courses that you can get as a California private security guard can be online. Okay, I mean, baton, I don't believe you can do that online, and I don't believe you could do the entire. No, you can't do the entire firearms portion online. But for the use of force, just that portion, it has to be taught in person. And the legislation discusses that in person means in person. And it doesn't mean on a camera, showing up remotely, webcam or no, actually in person. Okay, and 50% of the course has to be in person. So there's no more 100% online for the basic powers to arrest, aka the guard card course. 50% in person, and you can also do 50% online. And I personally prefer the in person. It helps. I learn better when I'm in person. Now some people it doesn't matter, but 50% of the course you got to be in person. Also, what I also saw with AB 229 is you have to complete an incident report for any type of use of force incident. Current legislation mentions that obviously if you discharge your firearm at a person, you shoot them, or use some type of deadly weapon, you have to report it to BSIS within 7 days. But now it looks like if you use any type of force against somebody, whether they're injured, because right now if you use force against somebody, you grapple them to the ground. If they're going to make a police report, or they're injured, which requires some type of medical attention, you have to report it to BSIS in the written report. You got 7 days to do that. Now, if you use any force, whether they're injured or not, whether they report the incident to police or not, BSIS is going to need an incident report. Okay, whether this is good business practice or not, I could find an argument against it, but in a way, it does hold our industry accountable. This is a little bit more work that we're going to have to do. Those of you who own private security companies or who are in leadership positions, you guys, the incident reports, you're going to have to retrain your staff, or actually you're going to have to give them an update on the law. Okay, and if there's any updates, I'm going to try my best to put out a video up there. Maybe you can share this video with them. So one of the committee members asked, well, did something happen? Usually when there's a law that just comes out of nowhere, there's usually something that happened. And yes, Mr. Holden repeatedly talks about the Golden One Center incident in Sacramento. This fueled AB 229, and I think in that incident, at the Golden One Center. There's a trespasser. He was tackled by private security, and it looked like it was legitimate on video. There's some type of scuffle, and the suspect ended up not breathing and passing away. Because of that, there's AB 229. I don't believe that we should have knee-jerk legislation for every single incident that's out there. We don't need laws for every single thing. But Holden's office believes that this is the best course of action. So stand by for AB 229. Okay, so Mr. Heath Flora, he's a Republican, California. He proposed AB 358, which covers electrical fences, and I didn't even know that this is illegal. That this is something that was discussed until within the last week. So electrical fences. Those of you who own an alarm operator company, you have it's called an ACO license. You need to keep track of this law, AB 358. There's some confusion. If you guys watch the meeting, there's some confusion whether you need an ACO license or a general contractor's license for electrical fence. And it looks like if the electrical fence, okay, once this law passes, and it might, okay, there's electrical fence, if it is somehow tied to like a burglary system or some type of intrusion system, it looks like that you're going to need an ACO license. Otherwise, if it's just electrical fence, it looks like you need the general contractor's license, and there are some electrical divisions as part of the general contractor license that this contractor would need. I think it's called a CA or CAT 7, and this deals with voltage. I'm probably butchering the title, but you're going to need a contractor's license if you put up electrical fence. What is very important for those of you who are taking the private patrol operator qualified manager exam, you have the exam will test your knowledge on when you need a private investigator license, when you need an ACO license. Okay, I don't know if this is on the test or not. I would not discuss test content at all, but in the past, BSIS has tested the applicant's knowledge of what different licenses you would need for different circumstances. So you definitely have to know, if this passes, that if the electrical fence just goes up, okay, you need the contractor's license, and if it's connected to some type of security system, like intrusion system, then you need an ACO license. So there's a committee member, this is towards the end, when they ask about if any of the executive committee members had any questions or comments. And one of the members mentioned that, hey, we operated our training facility under an LLC for 8 years, and the state, BSIS, basically gave them a cease and desist notice, told them that you guys are operating illegally. We made a mistake about 8 years ago. We were not supposed to grant you a training facility license, and I think it's firearms, under an LLC ownership. Okay, so you might be wondering, well, somebody asked me about, I think, Guardsmark, that Guardsmark is operated under an LLC, and why were they allowed to operate as a private patrol operator if you can only open a private patrol operator company under a sole proprietorship, a corporation, and right now I think that's all I can think of. Right, those are the only forms of ownership that come to mind at this exact minute. And my answer was, well, there was a mistake made, but you don't have any liability protection. If something happens. And see, what happened here is BSIS told them you can't operate anymore. You have to incorporate your business if you want to, or operate it as a sole proprietorship, but we need a brand new license. You need to reapply for your training facility. In the meantime, you cannot operate. So even if they make a mistake. So those of you who asked about, I think, Guardsmark or some other companies out there, remember Guardsmark, they're one of the top ones. How are they operating under LLC? I don't know. But with a company so huge, I'm sure that they have some type of legal representation that allows them to operate a portion of the business, okay, under an LLC. Maybe just the account receivable department, it might be under an LLC, but everything else might be under a corporation. I have not researched how Guardsmark LLC operates exactly, but I'll tell you this: if you accidentally get an LLC license, you don't have that. You can be shut down instantly by BSIS. Okay, and that's what happens, even if it's their mistake. Okay, if you have a private security company right now or a training facility that is under an LLC, you guys, I highly recommend that you consult with an attorney, but it was up to me. I'd shut it down immediately and reapply. And unfortunately, this gentleman has been waiting 9 months for his license. 9 months. He's been out of work for 9 months. People have not been able to go to this training facility for 9 months. It was BSIS's mistake. However, they cannot operate under an LLC. Okay. Here are my closing remarks. I encourage all of you to watch the BSIS agenda meeting. I'm going to leave a link in the description above. Do not take my word for it. It's highly recommended that you watch almost 3 hours of the video to receive more accurate information than what I could give to you guys. The next meeting should be in about 4 months from now. So that puts us July, August, September, October, sometime in November of 2021. I hope that you guys will appear. If you're frustrated with anything, you want to make any comments, the BSIS chief, in my opinion, is willing to entertain new ideas, and it looks like she's willing to assist you, but you guys have to complain on these webinars. If you don't, the issue that you need addressed is just going to be lost. Hopefully this video helps you guys. If you have any comments, concerns, please comment below. Please share this video with any member of your leadership team and your fellow security guards, fellow private investigator professionals. Okay, you guys all be safe. Take care.